Hi everyone. In this tutorial, we are going to do a short introduction to working with 3D models on Aframe and Glitch. So if you go to Canvas and then go to our course resources and links, and then go to course project resource documents, it will take us to our handy resource page. And here there is, in this yellow section, there's a lot of resources here for 3D model libraries and different places to get 3D model objects. So the first thing in this tutorial you're going to do is, on this first line where it says GLB Packer, click on that and have this open because we're going to use that. And this is a really handy tool that was made specifically for creating GLB files that really are going to be the easiest to work with in Aframe on Glitch. Working with 3D models is complicated by our Aframe framework because it is serving 3D models over the web. So there's a few different things that are going to cause issues for us and that we have to deal with because of it being, so we need to optimize it for web serving, which is different than if we were working with 3D models in a modeling program or in a 3D animation program. It's a little bit like the difference between working with a Photoshop file in Photoshop versus a JPEG, which we don't want to serve Photoshop files over the web. We want to serve JPEGs. But in order to get there, we have to do a few different things. So first, we can look at a lot of the different resources that have free models. And I like to go to Google Poly. It has a lot of things. It used to be a little bit better. So now there's a lot of things. Anyone can post things on Google Poly. There's a lot of people who post their 3D digital art on here. And I try not to use the models that are basically someone's art project because I don't want to use another person's art project. I want to just grab some objects that are going to be like dressing for my scene. So there's all these different categories here. You can go to the categories and look through them. So here's nature. Again, all of these projects are going to be different levels of things that you could use and bring into your project. I'm going to just search for a tree. So these are more objects that I feel that I can use in my project. And when I go here, it gives us a download button, and we can take the GLTF file or an OBJ file. So I'm going to show you these two different things. And if you download the GLTF file for this and then open it, if we look inside, we have three different files. There's the GLTF model file, a bin file, and then the base color PNG. So we need all three of these in order for our model to look like this ultimately. But the issue with Aframe is that if we upload all of these into our assets page, it's going to cause a problem finding all of these things. So instead of uploading that, I have this loaded here. I have a simple scene set up already that is just a plane. And what I'm going to do is add in some 3D models. But first, I'm going to take them over to this GLB Packer site and just upload it there because that's going to be the easiest way for me to work with the materials and the 3D models all together in one package. So if I go here and go to my downloads, and the Packer site here, it says drop a GLTF and its associated bin file and textures here. So then I just take all of those three that came with that download and I drag it onto this page. And it immediately wraps it into a GLB file, and then we can upload that to our assets in Aframe. So I've already gone through and I've done this with a couple of models that I found on Google Poly and also on CG Trader. So I will just take those. So here's a palm tree. I'll copy that and go back to my index. And I need to add in assets. So let's do our asset management. And we get our assets tag there. And then instead of an image, we're going to add a different type of asset, which is that GLB file, which is our model. So we write a asset item tag because it's not an image file. Normally, so far, we've only worked with image tags. And then in here, I'm going to do the same thing that I do with the image. I give it an ID, and I'm going to call it tree1. And then the source is that link that I copied. And then down here in my scene, I'm going to add an entity and a GLTF model and have it equal the hashtag tree1. And then I have to give it a position. So I'll give it a position of -1 and 0 and -5. And now let's look next to the code. Ah, there is my tree object that I downloaded from Google Poly. So I'm going to add up, let's see, where's my plane? I'll position, oh, it's at -5. Let's put that at 0. And I'll scale this down a bit, scale to 0.4, 0.4, 0.4. And then I will, yeah, let's see what that looks like. Okay, so I made that smaller. And I also got a structure from Google Poly. I just searched, I was searching kind of random things, and I found this cube room, which I downloaded the same way. I went here and I got the GLTF file and I used the GLB packer, and I've uploaded it already in my assets here, and I called it room. So I'm going to grab that and copy it and go to my index, and I will add this also to my assets. The asset item ID equals room, and the source is that link, so I copy that. And now I will add in a entity GLTF model equals room, and I'll position it at 0, 0, and -1, and I'm going to scale it to 5 and 5 and 5. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so now we are inside of this cube, which I am going to use as a room that is like an atrium garden. So see how this is glitching as I move backwards? It's because the plane and the cube are both at the zero y level. So they're interacting with each other. And I can move that. I just moved the plane up, but I'm going to move it back down. Oops. Yeah, okay. So now that plane is not interacting, it's gone. I could leave that. I could make it up a little higher if I wanted to keep that in there. And if I go all the way out, eventually I will move all the way out of the cube room and out into the landscape of the boilerplate. So here's, I'm traveling through the wall, and now you can see it's the cube from the outside. So I had already scaled that up to 5 times the size of it because I wanted it to be a large object that was room scale, but it's really just a 3D object scaled up, and then we're on the inside of it. So that helps us to create the interior space. So I have a couple of more 3D objects that I've gotten and wrapped already. So let's do asset item ID equals tree2 and the source. I'll go to my assets and here I have another tree already wrapped in the GLB, and I did the same process. I went to here and I threw them all in here, and then it gave me a single GLB file. So let me copy that in here. And I will add entity GLTF model equals tree2. And I'll give it a position of -2, 0, and -6. And then I'll close that. And it did not show up. Let's take a look at that. I have the GLT tree2, position -2, maybe -6 was too far. The tabs are all closed. So in a new window. And I'm going to open the inspector and see if it's there. Sometimes when you bring in 3D models from the internet that you downloaded, they can be a weird scale or size and you have to find them. This appears not to be here. So let's try a couple of different things. Sometimes there's a trick where you can erase this last part of this on here and it will make it show up. And that did not do it. Okay, let's pause here. Okay, I paused it, sorry, to figure out what it was, and it was a really simple mistake. I forgot the hashtag here to bring in the model and my entity. So there's my second tree model that I brought in, and sometimes, you know, this is a really common thing to do. A simple mistake, you just forget something like that, and then it takes a second to realize you have to look through everything that you did and make sure that you are not missing anything. Okay, so let's get another one. Go to my assets, and I have another palm tree object here. This might be the same one. Let's go back and do, oh yes, that's the same one, palm tree one. Let's see what this one is. I don't remember. I think it might also be a palm tree. So a asset item ID equals tree 3 and source file I copied. And now we do a entity GLTF model equals hashtag tree3. We'll give it a position of -2, 0, and -4. And let's see how that looks. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's the same palm tree. It's another one inside of my room. I can also bring in an OBJ. So if we go back to the Google Poly and download the OBJ file, it's going to also give us different files that has materials and everything. But here, let's just look at one. Or let's find a plant. A lot of them are really lo-fi. And here, maybe this cactus. Something went wrong. Tufts of grass. How about that? Okay, so let's download the OBJ. And then open that up. So here's the OBJ and the material. With Aframe, it's very difficult to get it. Sometimes it will read the material and sometimes it won't. So if I do this object and the material, and now I grab this object and I copy it, and I go to index, and I will add this OBJ. I can do a asset item ID equals grass OBJ, and source equals link. And then I grab the grass material, let's copy that, and do asset ID equals grass MTL, and the source equals this. So I created an asset item for the grass material because grass material is not, before we applied a texture, we were using an image. So this was grass as a material for texture, but this is an MTL file. So that's why we don't use the image tag. We use still the asset item tag, and we're trying to bring in this material file. It might not work because it often does not work with Aframe serving it over the web, and there's a lot of reasons for that we could go into, but let's try it out and see if this, look at this. So we have an OBJ model now. So we do OBJ equals, and we have to put OBJ here, and then the hashtag, what did I call it? Grass OBJ. And then let's just see if the grass model comes in, and then position, we'll do 0, 0, minus 3. Now let me make sure I have that grass OBJ correct. Okay, let's see if it's next to the code. Oh, there it is. It was floating in the space behind it. Let's bring it closer. There's the grass, and then it disappears. Let's take this room. So I'm also going to organize this a little bit better with some comments. So here I'm going to comment room environment. And then the things underneath that will be my room. And then up here I will do a comment that says plants and trees. So I know where all of these are located. And let's just see if I take this away for right now, if the room is blocking this grass. Yes. So here's my grass. It has no material. It is floating here in space. What is it doing? Let's look at it in a new window and open the inspector, Control Option I, and let's see, where is this? Grass located. The grass is located in this really weird space out here. And this might be because of the way that whatever is baked into this model is doing something weird. And this will happen when you get models. It might have this position in here. It might have something weird going on here, and it does. So how do we move this? Scale is down. Oh, see the scale. It's doing something weird with the scale. The scale is moving at like a position, which has to do with the way that this model was made. I bet this was made with a paint tilt brush program instead of a 3D model program, and it's acting weird. So this is something that might happen when you download 3D models. They're not going to work the way you want them to all the time. And you kind of have to troubleshoot, especially with things that you just download from random people online. It's good to kind of look for things that look like they are not done with a paint program. But these are all kinds of things that will happen. I foresee a lot of problems when you're working with 3D model objects from these libraries, because it always happens. But let's go to our assets. So I downloaded an OBJ that does work. It's another palm tree. And I'm going to copy that and put this in here. And do asset it equals tree 4. And the source equals that, I think. And now let's add that in here. So this one didn't work. I'm going to get rid of that. I'll change this to tree 4. Let's put it over 3. Okay, there it is. So here's our other palm tree. I'm going to move this. Let me get rid of this giant one right in the middle here. And you can see it comes in as just this white 3D object because it doesn't have a material attached to it. So let's scale this down. Scale equals 0.3. Okay, so I scaled it down a bit, and I am going to try to apply the material. So when I try to apply the material from the assets, so the material that came with this was this, and I hit copy and paste it in here as a asset. Item ID equals tree 4 MTL, and the source equals this. And then in my model down here, I will add in the MTL as hashtag tree 4 dash MTL. And let's see if that brings it in. Probably won't. And it doesn't. And so this might happen a lot. Sometimes it will. It really, I don't know why. It's very finicky. Well, I do know why, but it's very finicky with the materials. And this is kind of the first problem that people have, is trying to understand how the 3D models in Aframe bring in the material. Instead of working with the material file here, I could just add my own material, but it won't map to the material, to the tree the same way the material will, but I could just add in material the way I have with my other things like my textures, and do source is, let's bring in, I could just do an image. So my grass that I've used before, my seamless grass, I could copy this and bring this in as an asset. So img ID equals, just call it grass, and do that source. And I'm going to erase this grass object that didn't work, so we don't get confused by our grass. So ID is grass. And now I have the material source equals grass. Let's go to a new window. So I can apply this material as a texture to the 3D model, just like I would any other entity, but it's not going to map intelligently to the tree the way that a material file does, and the way that this tree has the leaves that are green and the bark is brown, and then there's the bark that is in the right place. So if you grab a 3D model that is an OBJ and the material doesn't work, you could still use it in a creative way, and we could add a repeat here. Oh, I don't know, 5 and 5. So it could be this weird grassy palm tree. I could do different things with the material to make it look plant-like and still have it be usable, but it won't match the material. It won't map on the way that these built-in materials will. So these are a couple of ways to bring in 3D models. There's a lot that goes into how 3D models work, but if for this assignment you just worry about finding models in the different 3D model libraries, downloading them and turning them into GLTF, GLBs with that GLB packer here, and bring in a couple of OBJ models that you find and add a material in the way that we would with any other object. That will give you a lot that you can work with building out the scene for your assignment. So don't worry too much about any issues that happen with the OBJ models or the GLTFs. It's going to happen. It happens every time. It's probably one of the most frustrating parts about working with Aframe are working with the 3D models and their materials. So hang in there and let me know if you have any questions. And we will look at 3D models more next week. Good luck. Bye.